let us get started. So today is our first session. I will let you know about our learning plan, what we will learn, and I would also like to hear about what you would like to learn from this tech series, and then we will prepare a plan for this. Okay. Are there anybody who is attending this session and still studying in school up to 10th? Can just mention as if anybody is there, because I heard so few people who are studying in school also will be joining, and this is a pure from the scratch training. Okay, this is a Java 101 session, and hope you know what a 101 is. 101 means it is the name usually given by universities for a course on introduction to some topic, and we will learn everything from scratch. So that is our caption for this training, and hence I've called it Java 101. And so this was how I used to look before lockdown, and this is how I look after lockdown or during this lockdown. Okay, and if anybody of you is also preparing for coding interviews, then you can join the club, coding interview club. But again, don't worry, I'm actually creating a community based learning program for anybody to ask doubts and all, which I'll be sharing with you by next week. Okay, so these are the two books I have written, and first both of them are in the areas of cloud computing, but in the first one it is using Java also. It is building a serverless programming application on AWS using Java and related technologies. And javaje.com and cloudrix.com are my blogs, and I have set up few forwarders to make it easy for you to contact me on LinkedIn, FB page, to see my Google Knowledge panel, or even to join this group discussion in Facebook. So you can check out any of those if you want. Okay, this will be our agenda for today. We will get started with some basic announcements and information, and after that we will see a bit of history and future of Java, how Java is going to be, and then we will learn a bit of Java basics, and we will also see some career ideas, and I will answer any of your questions related to Java career, and we will have a small quiz championship in the end with some generic topics related to software and technology, and then we will end with the we will end with the surprise of the week. Okay, we will not go much deep into any of the topics today. We will just get started, and in the end I'll be also asking you for feedback on what all you would like to learn from this course, and I'll be preparing a detailed plan with dates on how and when we will finish it, and then I will share it with you before our next session. Okay, let us get started. Part 1, getting started. So this is especially for the bigger kids who actually are now working, those who are out of schools and working, and for smaller kids they are still studying, so it does not matter. The person who stops studying merely because he has finished school is forever hopelessly doomed to mediocrity. No matter what may be his calling, the way of success is the way of continuous pursuit of knowledge. Okay, this is something which I found interesting in a book I am reading now. I thought I'll share it with you. Okay, and they say there is nothing called free lunch. So some people ask me why I am conducting this course for free, and is there any catch? I thought I'll put a slide to explain that also. And first of all, many of you were part of my Java J group for long, and you know the quote I used to say. I believe that knowledge is useless unless you share it, and the more you share, the more you learn. Whenever I teach somebody, from the questions I get and from the interaction, I actually learn a lot, and I also, like remember. I also refresh my knowledge and try to remember and get better on what I know. Okay, so it is a win-win situation for both of us. Okay, and then I am also experimenting with a few teaching tools like this Zoom and a few other webinar tools and few other uh, platforms where I can share courses. So all these things are to help people who want to start online e-learning programs. So especially during this COVID times, most of the courses are moving to online. Most of the teachers are finding it difficult to conduct courses online. So I thought I'll help them out in ways I can, and it will also help me also to understand these tools. And then, so whenever I teach, I learn more, as I mentioned before, and it will definitely help me in my work, my next book, and even in my blog and next trainings. Okay, and I like connecting with people. So, and my goal for this year is to take a live session for close to 5,000 attendees, and I have got a license for that in one of the tools. So let us see if I will be successful in doing it with all of your help. And then finally, I don't know what will happen to my job also in future due to COVID and other things. So if I am out of job, then I'll probably try out becoming a full-time trainer. And with all of your help, I hope it will be successful. Okay, and then so we have a offline learning plan, and for that I actually um, host it on a platform, and then I'll have to pay that platform. So there is a fee for that, and for the offline training program, we have people from across the globe, and I have put a fee also because of this quote from the same book I am reading. One of the strange things about human beings is that they value only that has a price, or something for which they have put some effort. So if you do not want to pay the price for the offline learning app, which you can install from your mobile, you can still do it by winning the quizzes. Okay, so every day I'll put a quiz across for you to answer, and then the winner will get a free membership every week. And then for others, you will have like option. So the membership is originally 149, but if you win the quiz, you get it for free. And top three, second and third, will get it for only $3, and top 10 will get it only for $10. So this is just to make sure you put some effort for gaining the benefits of offline quiz, which I am anyway paying. But that is not at all a requirement for joining this course. This course is completely free for everybody. And so some interaction guidelines. We have a webinar Q&A. You can see this Q&A thing in your webinar screen. So if you ask any question, I'll get it as a question and I'll try to answer it. And others can also probably vote whether that is relevant to them or not. Similarly, you can use the chat, but chat you can use for general discussion to me or to others who are attending this training. And I might occasionally share some polls for you to answer. And then we have our live quiz. Okay, live quiz, you can go to heartin.live. I will share the details of live quiz in some time. Okay, and let us quickly get started without wasting any more time. History and future of Java. So whenever we start something new, we have to start with the history, right? So JDK came as beta in 1995. Then it got upgraded to 1.0 in 1996. Then different versions came in 1987, 1988, 2000, 2002, and the naming conventions changed a bit for with the 5. So they started calling it 5.0 instead of 1.4, 1.5 and all. So, and that was in 2004. Then SC6 came in 2006. So 5 was considered a kind of a big release with a lot of groundbreaking changes happening to the Java ecosystem. Then 6 was an upgrade, 7 came, that was an upgrade. So 8 was again another big change for Java releases, where they introduced a lot of newer features like lambdas and the concepts such as functional programming. Because until now, everybody believed that the object-oriented programming is the one and only thing that can take you to successfully implementing software projects. But then with Java 8, they introduced some functional programming concepts. Because until now, object-oriented was kind of the only thing that people wanted to use. So that was the only best practice that everybody wanted to follow. But with the Java 8, they were forced, actually Java was forced to introduce the concept of functional programming alongside still supporting the object-oriented programming concepts. And then they also introduce features like lambdas, streams and all, which we will see further down in our tech series. Okay, then 9 came, 10 came, 11 came, 12 came, 13 came, 14 came. So after 9 or after 8, so from 8, so Java decided they will have kind of a regular release process. Okay, and Java 8 is considered as a long-time support version. So long-term support versions usually get released in every 3 years. So for Java 8 got released in 2014, and from 9 they took this decision. So 2017 September, Java 9 got released. So 10 got released in 2018 March, and after that again Java 11 long-term service or long-term support version got released. So that is Java 11 is current long-term support version. So some companies will want to go only with the long-term support version, so which is Java 11 currently. And after that 12 came, 13 came, 14 came, and future it will be, so now it is predictable. So 15 will come in September 2020, 16 will come in March 2021, and the next LTS version will get released on September 2021, and it is titled Java EC 17. And again, so this kind of newer this kind of newer release model is generally referred to as a train release model, because of so if you have gone to railway stations where continuous train stops are there, maybe consider a metro if you are in India. So if you miss a metro, then you will probably go in the next metro. So similarly, if you miss a train, you have to go in next train, right? So similarly, if a feature is not ready for a release, the release will still go, but that will go in next available release. So now Java has more flexibility over releases, more frequent releasing, and following a correct structure. So okay, so Java basics. So we will learn a little bit of basics today, even if it is the first class, and then I will ask you for your feedback for the topics that you need me to cover in further sessions, and then we will cover them. And along with the sessions from next week, we will have lots and lots of practice questions. I have more than 500 practice questions. Then if you do all these things, and then if you do all the exercises, then you can definitely master Java. Okay, we will follow a practice with a theory approach, where you will have a lot of practices, and it will be mostly in the form of quizzes, exercises and all, and you can ask all your doubts and clear all your doubts here. So make sure you ask all your doubts, because If you are not going to ask anything, and if you are just going to sit and listen, then there is no point in attending a live session, right? So, and it is not even a Facebook live or a YouTube live. It is actually a live webinar session, so you can ask questions real time and get your answers. Otherwise, you can better see a video tutorial and then learn it, right? So when you have put across all other things and then come here for this time, so make maximum use of it by asking questions. Okay, and so so this is our first screen. So but before that, I would also like to get feedback from you anytime after the course on how I can improve. Okay, how I can improve this online course, because until now I was mostly doing in-person classes or sessions. So last time I did a official session on Java was kind of in Java has a meetup group in Bangalore, which is run by the Java platform team in Oracle. So I had gone to Oracle to take a session on Java's concurrency. So that was after Java 8 was released, and how concurrency was implemented in or how we can better use concurrency. So there was a big somewhere I can share later. Okay, let us continue with Java basics for now. First of all, how many of you know the difference between a compiler-based language and an interpreter-based language? Or in other words, how many of you know what is a compiler and what is the interpreter? Can you just message it in your chat? So don't message in group, just message in chat whether you know the difference between a compiler and an interpreter. Okay, I have a few questions that are interesting, like any discount for my company colleagues, and about features in Java 17. We will go one step at a time. So, and then if you want to, okay, if you are answering any question like general question, and if it is not private to me, you can select all panelists and attendees and then send a message so that everybody will see your responses or questions. So others can also, so everybody are sending it only to me. So so select all panelists and attendees and send so that everybody can see your responses. So I am getting all responses only to me. Okay, so it is mentioned interpreter directly executes the code. So okay, converts the interpreter in instructions into machine code or lower level. Okay, so you can message to everybody so that I don't have to read it to everybody. Everybody can see them. Okay, so yeah, so we'll most of you made it correct. So compilers and interpreters. So compiler is a software that will take your source code. Okay, compiler is a software that will take your source code. So what is source code? So source code is something that you write. Okay, I will go to very basic because this is called a from the scratch training. So today I'll go to very basics. From next week we will switch gears and go a little bit faster. Okay, so today I'm assuming you are all here without any knowledge of computer science or any knowledge of Java at all. Okay, so high level language versus machine language. Before that, compilers are software that can convert your source code into a machine understandable form. So high level language is something that we write. So like Java, C++, or anything that we write in English like language. Most of these languages are written using English language as the selected language. So most of these languages are written in English currently. So that English based code that you write, so that is the high level language. Okay, and so there will be a language that is understood only by the computer. So let us call it as a machine language. Okay, and somebody has to convert this high-level language into a machine language. Who does this? That is done either by compiler or by interpreter. The difference is when they do that. Okay, and compiled languages does these things initially. Okay, they convert the language into they convert the high-level language into machine language and then provide it to you, so that so you can take it to any platform and then you can execute it. But can you take it to any platform? No, you can only take it to the platform that it is made for. For example, so here when you say machine language, it is not purely the machine that is, or the bare metal machine that is sitting. It is actually the operating system. Okay, so you compile something for Windows operating system, you can it will be generally an exe file, right? So you can compile something for a Windows operating system, you can compile something for a Linux operating system, and you can compile something for a Mac. So they will have its own formats. So you compile it and then you take it to each of these platforms and then execute it. And with interpreted languages, you do not compile it beforehand. You instead install a software called as an interpreter in each of these machines. Okay, and so the interpreter for Windows will know how to convert the high-level language into a Windows specific format. Interpreter for Linux can convert the high-level language into its own specific format. If you want an example, I can say something like, imagine I am going to a country. I imagine I am a very senior executive or senior minister or somebody in our country, and I am going to another country where people do not understand our language. And imagine that I know only, say, Hindi or Kannada or Malayalam or any Indian language. I do not know any language like German or French or anything. And I am going to some meeting, or I need to convey certain things to that people who are who know only German or French or any other language. So what will I do? So I have two options. Either I can call two people, one who know German and English or Hindi, whatever language I know. So let us take it as English, since I am talking in English now. So one person who know English and German, and I will tell him what I need to tell those people, and he will go there and he will talk to them in German. And I will have another person who know German and or French and English. I will tell that person all the things, and he will go to that place and he will talk to them. So I am sitting here, but a person who can speak German is going there and he is speaking, and a person who is comfortable with French is going to France and he is speaking to them. Okay, so this is how compilers work. And so similarly, we have different end products for each of the platform, and then we will send those end products to the people's computers. And interpreted languages. Okay, interpreted languages can be compared to a situation where I myself will be going to every place, and this interpreters will be standing there. Okay, these interpreters will be standing there, and then I'll be talking something in English, and then he will be converting it into German. Or if I go to France, so that person will be standing there and converting it into French. So this is a interpret approach where I am actually going there. So I am, in this case, I am portable. I can go everywhere, and then somebody will be converting it live there. Okay, so which of these? Okay, I'll go to the previous screen. Okay, now tell me which of these will be faster. You can message a compiler or interpreter, selecting all attendees. Okay, just message a compiler or interpreter. So I need you to make some effort from your side, then only you will learn. Okay, people are still sending to all panelists alone. it is still fine. You can send to panelists alone, or you can send to panelists and attendees. Okay. And people are telling interpreter, compiler, interpreter, compiler. Yeah, it is. People are going with both the options. So anyway, we have to choose one of things, right? So if you take a real world example also, what will be faster? So so converting line by line, or knowing everything and then telling it in one go. So the compiler based approach is faster because the compiler based approach is faster because the person who is going to speak know everything, and then he can just speak. That conversion doesn't have to happen on the spot. So compiler, you have already converted it into a machine language, or a platform specific form that can be understood by Windows. So you go there and just execute it, all the lines will be executed. But if it is an interpreter, what will happen? You are taking the source code or a optimized form of source code to that platform, and then you'll have to convert one line, execute it, convert next line, execute it. So which will be faster? Compiler, right? Because so the speed should be calculated at the end place. Okay, it should not be calculated. The complete time shouldn't be calculated. So because in compiler, the conversion is only one-time activity. So one-time activity may not be considered for checking this execution time. So we are only worried about execution time here. Which will have a better execution time? It will be compilers, because it is already converted to a platform and you can just execute it. You don't need any conversion time. But for interpreter, you are converting first line, executing it second line, executing it. So it will be definitely the little bit slower than the compiler. But so this was how things were before. But now all these compilers and interpreters are also improving, so that even interpreters do just-in-time compilation, so that first time when they convert something, they will keep a reference to it, or they store it in memory, so that next time when that thing comes, they don't have to convert it again. They will just reuse it. In a way, they can work as fast as compilers, but again, purely if you consider, compilers are always faster than interpreters. Okay, so anybody has any question about it? Whether still do you believe compilers are slower? So if you have any question, ask me. Okay, so compilers are faster than interpreters, and so the advantage for a compiled language is speed, and second advantage is type safety. Type safety means you have to do this conversion or compilation before actually giving it to client, right? So during that process, what will happen? You have to read all the lines. So while you read all the lines, you can make sure that, okay, all my syntax is fine. I have used the types. So types means in first line I have used use a variable. We'll learn variables and all in detail later. So variable is something that can hold another value. So we'll use a variable that can hold a integer or a number of type 5, a number of type integer. So because some people may not know integer, in that case it is just a number. Okay, so we'll have a variable that can hold a number, and later we will try to assign something of a different type, like a character or a string. Okay, string is a group of characters. We will again learn them in detail later. Okay, so if you try to assign later to that, while type checking, you can see that, okay, there it is a number and you are trying to do something else, and that is not expected, so I will not allow that. So that kind of mistakes, accidental mistakes, can be caught by this type checking process during compilation. But interpreter, they are doing it line by line. So what will happen? So when you directly go and then convert it at a customer or the end product machine or end user machine. So you assign a integer or number initially, and then when you try to assign something else, and then you try to do some kind of mathematical operation on it, it will fail. Okay, so there is no type checking in pure interpreted languages. So, but what is the advantage of interpreted languages? Portability. You can write the same program and then take it to every other place. So portability is an advantage of interpreted languages, and speed and type checking are advantage of compiled language. Okay, so now my question is, what, have you ever installed Java or tried to install Java, or at least went and saw the Java download page? Okay, so we will see all these newer licensing things and all. Then we will see these downloadables available. Okay, so now with all the knowledge you gained, message whether Java is a compiled language or a interpreted language. If you, so yeah, some people have mentioned, some people have mentioned both, but if you want to call it either one, if you want to call it either a compiled language or a interpreted language, what will you call? Okay, if you want to call Java either a compiled language or an interpreted language, the answer is always that it is an interpreted language. Okay, so Java is an interpreted language, and as we will see shortly, the interpreter of Java is called as JVM, Java Virtual Machine. Okay, so this software called JVM, you need to install it on your computer. So you have to install JVM for Windows in Windows machine. You have to install JVM for Linux in Linux. You have to install JVM for Mac in Mac. So if you look here, so these are all the JRE is the package that contains JVM. All these are language specific, right? All these are platform specific. All these Java downloadables. That is why I gave this hint. All these things are platform specific. So it means you have to install it on each of these machines. You cannot expect it to work there. Okay, so all these are interpreters that can be installed on all of these machines, and then you will execute your program there. So now one more question. So the Java can be written using any language. So the Java interpreter or the Java compiler itself can be written using any programming language. So what kind of language do you think was used to create Java itself, whether it was a compiled language or an interpreted language? So if you go here, so these are actually implementations of the JVM or the Java runtime environment, right? So these are different for different platforms. That means they have been compiled already, and so in most of these cases they have been implemented using a compiled language. So while Java is an interpreted language, it is implemented at least in Oracle's case, it is implemented using a compiled language, most probably C or CPP or any of the compiled language, because we have already compiled it and you have already created a executable package that is specific to a platform. So see, Linux, Mac OS, Solaris, Windows, it is already for a platform. And if it was built using a compiled language, so Java itself is Java is an interpreted language, right? So whenever you build a Java application, you can ship the same application to any platform. Okay, and since this software is there in those platforms, there will not be any issue in executing that. So the same Java code or a Java class file, as we will learn in some time, so can be executed by this guy. Will execute it for the Linux, and so the Mac OS one will execute it for Mac OS, Windows one will execute it for Windows. Okay, so the platform specific one will execute it for that particular platform. So while Java is interpreted language, okay, so yeah, somebody has asked whether it was developed in C. So so it is completely up to, so you cannot say that Java is implemented using C. So Oracle's Java is implemented using C or CPP, but IBM's Java may be implemented using Smalltalk or some other language they are comfortable with. Okay, so Java is managed by Oracle in the sense the Java's set of rules. Okay, so that set of rules or the Java language specification is managed by Oracle. But so different companies can create their own versions following the same syntax and rules and all those things. Okay, Java language specification is a a document that you should all refer to for the rules, but any company can implement it in their own way. So most of the server-based product companies will have their own implementations. Okay, you also have an open source implementation called OpenJDK. Okay, so that is about Java and whether it is a compiled language or interpreted language. But there is a twist to the story. Even if it is a interpreted language, it will still do type checking and some optimizations. So that is why most people consider Java as both. It will do a compilation, it will do a partial compilation, but it will not compile it into a machine language, or it will not compile it into a platform specific form. It will compile it into an intermediate form called bytecode. Again, this bytecode is also platform independent. Okay, but while Java converts it into the bytecode, it will do the type checking. So it gets the type checking feature of compiled languages. And again, for speed, it most of the implementations use something called as just-in-time compilation. As I mentioned before, it will convert it into a first time when it sees a bytecode, it will convert it into platform specific form, and then they will reuse it. Okay, got it? So that is why some people call it as a compiled and interpreted language. But if you want to select one of them, it is definitely an interpreted language, and that interpreter is called what? JVM. Okay, and so this is just for information purpose. So the path environment variable in your operating system. So this is something which is specific to operating system. This has nothing to do with Java. So whenever you type some command in your operating system, what will happen? Whenever you type some command, your operating system will go to this path environment variable and check for all the locations you have mentioned there, and see if I can find an executable of this name in any of those paths. Okay, when we install Java and all, these things are important. Okay, so path is something which is specific to operating system. Any command you write, whether it is Java command or whether it is any other executable command, your operating system will go and check there. So class path is something which is more specific to Java, where your Java class files will be searched for. Again, we'll see these things in detail and how some of things have. We'll also see how some of these things have changed a bit with Java 9 and later. Okay, and feel free to ask any questions. So this is just a diagrammatic representation of how Java compilation process work. So initially you write a program in Java, and these programs will have an extension of .java, and then the Java compiler or Java C will actually convert it into a .class file. .class file is not platform specific, it is platform independent, and this is called as a bytecode. Okay, and this bytecode is then shipped to all end user computers, and the Java runtime has this thing called JVM, which is part of a file called Java. So if it is in Windows, you call it as java.exe, and other platforms it is generally Java. So this Java executable will convert your .class file into the actual, it will actually execute the .class file. So you create a source code, a Java compiler will convert it into a intermediate form called bytecode, and this bytecode will be again converted into the actual executable, and it will be executed by the JVM. So we will see all these things in detail during our course. So just to give you an overview, so this session is mostly to give you an overview about what Java is, so that you can ask me better questions and you can suggest what you want, so that I can plan for a curriculum for coming weeks. So unless we have a plan, we will not achieve much. And so this is about a simple hello world, because most programs, not just Java, most programming languages and most of the computer software related things start with this term called hello world. So I also kept it same. Okay, so this public class hello world is a class in Java, and inside that you have a method called main, and inside that we are printing something called hello. Okay, so this is how a very simple hello world application looks like. So I will share this program with you, and you can just execute it. You do not have to understand anything. So this is just to make sure your environment is fine, and we will see all these things, each and every term that is used in this program in detail. Okay, to summarize, public is an access modifier which specifies anybody can access it. So JVM is somebody which is outside of your program, right? So it needs access. So we gave it as public. So there are other access modifiers that we will learn. So static is a term used to specify that, okay, you do not have to create an object of this class to execute it. So that is also something which we are going to see it in very detail later. Void says that, okay, we are not giving back anything to JVM. We have something called as a return parameter. And here, if there is no return parameter, we have to mention void. And why that is there is because when we learn about constructors and all, we will learn that so constructors do not have a return type, but can have but has the same name as that of the class. So in Java, even a normal method can also have the same name as that of the class without being a constructor. So in that case, you have to have this void as return type. So this is how Java understands whether it is a constructor or a normal method. And then string args part, which you saw here, is a way for us to pass something into that Java program from our command line. So all these things we will see in detail next week. So because we have alternate theory sessions and we have alternate practice and lab sessions. Okay, so this week we have theory mostly, and next week will be mostly practical examples, sample questions and all. So if you follow all the sessions in order, you can definitely master Java, and then you can clear any certifications. And clearing certifications are not the major goal. The major goal is learning it and implementing it correctly in your work, or even in interviews or in your exams. Okay, coming back to Java, so all these things we will see in detail, but unless I tell something, you'll be in a very blank state without knowing anything about it at all, right? So Java has something called as so Java is something which is mostly used for developing applications, core applications for your desktop or core applications. But if you want to implement something like a website or something for the web, you have another thing in the Java ecosystem called as Java EE, okay, or Java Enterprise Edition. So when initially, if you are there for in software world for quite a long time, you might remember that initially this thing was called as J2E. Okay, so so most people used to say Java J2E, Java J2E. When I started my career many years back, so this enterprise thing was called as J2E for some reason, and then it remained like that for some time, and then it got changed to Java E5, Java E, I think from Java EE5, I believe. So as long as they announced that, okay, J2 is going to change to Java E, I registered a domain called Java JEE. Okay, Java and Java EE. So until then it was Java and J2E. So when they made Java and JEE, I immediately registered the domain, and so that is my Java blog, javajee.com. Okay, and so then you have frameworks. Okay, what are frameworks? We will not go into much detail about frameworks during the initial sessions, but you should have some idea. In programming world, a framework is something that will encapsulate or provide something out of the box. So as an example, in Java, if I need to connect to a database, what will I do? I will write some code that can open a connection with the database, that can that can allow me to send some information to that database that can allow me to read back that information. So I will write some code. Okay, so that code will be same irrespective of whether I am writing to this database or that database. Okay, that common code, somebody can put it into a framework. So here Hibernate is one such framework. So now I can say I want to write to this database, I want to write to that database. I don't worry about how actual writing is happening or actual reading is happening, because that is common and that is put into a framework called as Hibernate. Okay, so that is about framework. So similarly, Spring is another framework that is being used for many different purposes, but originally it came for supporting something called as dependency injection, but now Spring has modules for a lot of things. And then Spring Boot is an improved version of Spring, where you many of the things will be guessed by the framework. Okay, or there will be a set of defaults. So it is generally referred to as convention over configuration. So you have a convention, then your framework will be made using that convention, and then if you are following that convention, you don't have to do anything. If you are developing a web application in Spring Boot, you can create just a few lines and create a web application, and it will even deploy that application into a web server like Tomcat, and it will run. Okay, all these things will be done just by few lines. But if you want to follow something different, like a different convention, I want instead of Tomcat as a web server, if I want a different server, then I'll have to do some modification. So that is the concept of convention over configuration. And then these are the popular IDEs: IntelliJ IDEA, Eclipse, and NetBeans. NetBeans was popular initially, then Eclipse gained a lot of importance, and now IntelliJ is getting a lot of importance because it is paid software and has support. But you can definitely use the community edition, which is free. Or I am trying to talk to IntelliJ team to get some free licenses for all of you guys who are attending this session. I'll be getting to hear back from them by next week. So if you're lucky, you will have licenses for IntelliJ IDEA by next week's session. Okay, and so this is all about Java's ecosystem. Okay, so this is my plan for the course, but if you have other suggestions, you can definitely let me know, and then I will include all those things. So first we will learn all pre-Java features that are essential and that are not deprecated. If a feature is deprecated, then probably we won't learn it because it will not be there in future anyway. And that can still compile with Java 11. So Java 11 is current long-term support version. So that will be our base version for testing all our code. So you should install Java 11, and then we will learn all features of Java 8, like functional programming, lambdas, streams, and more. After that, we will also learn features of Java 9 and 10 that are not deprecated and that will compile with Java 11. So then we will learn everything in Java 11. So we will completely learn everything that is there in a full-time version like Java 11 or Java 8, as long as it is not deprecated. So, and we will also see all the newer features that are in Java 12, 13, and 14. So this is my plan. And if you have any other suggestions, if you have any other topics that needs to be included, I will just share a link. I was just creating a web form for that purpose. I will ping it in the chat. Somebody has asked how I can check the Java that is installed. So there are two things. So if you want to check the JDK, okay, what is the difference between JDK and JRE? We already saw it in a slide. So JDK is a software that contains your compiler. So it is needed if you are a developer. You need JDK. JDK comes with the JRE also, or the Java executable also. So when you say which version of Java, so because I think Biljit has asked whether how to check which version of Java is installed in his machine. So when you say if you want to check what version of compiler is installed or what version of JDK is installed, you can type Java C -V, And if you want to install what version of Java is installed or what version of JVM is installed, you can type Java space -v. And if you, when you execute these commands, if you are getting a response that, okay, command not found, what will you do? We saw about path and class path, right? So just check the path of your operating system and see if your Java installation location where your Java c.exe or java.exe is present is added to the class path or not. Not class path, added to the path or not. If you add to the path, then you should not get that warning that command not found. Okay, I hope that is okay for you. And then meanwhile, you can fill this form with any other things that you would like to like for me to teach. So it is not overhead. So this, I shared this link because in parallel you can do this thing. Okay, so this is my plan. If you do not want me to teach any of these in particular, then you can say, okay, I don't want that. Or if you want, if you say I want to teach more on anything, that also you can say. And we will whenever we take a topic, we will do practicals, and we'll also do lots and lots of examples. We'll do some examples in class, and then we will do I will give you some examples for homeworks where you can actually practice it, and then come back, and then we will only discuss the results. Okay, we will also have intermediate sessions only for practice, so that is optional for everybody. Whoever wants to just come and practice those sample questions, I will have practice sessions in between. I will share with you. Okay, so do make sure you join next class without fail, or you contact me in any of the ways I mentioned, like heartin.me through my Facebook page. If you type heartin.me, you can go to my Facebook page, or if you type heartin.work, you can go to my LinkedIn page, or you can just reply back to the webinar email contact, which is heartintech@gmail. Anyway, you just mention that you are interested in continuing, so that I will add you to our Slack group or other discussion groups. So now, if you want, you can use the Q&A. I have 2 questions in Q&A. First question is certification important to prove knowledge or language proficiency? Not. It is not same. So certification is not a mandatory thing. If you have work experience, you don't need a certification. But if you do not have work experience, and if you want to move your career towards cloud, in this case, either cloud or Java, because I just came after cloud session, and this question was is generally asked for the cloud session. So in generally, if you want to move to a new technology, whether it is Java or cloud or anything, it is good to have a certification, because your interviewer or the company that is going to hire you will have a feeling that, okay, he has done some effort on that, and he knows something. Having a certification does not mean you know everything, but still you'll be better than people who do not have a certification. But if you have experience in that area, then certification is not at all a mandatory thing, but it will be a good thing in your resume that having a certification logo. So I did my first certification when I was in college, and after joining company, I take a certification every year. So I have 10 plus certifications. So, but it is just for my learning purpose, and then it is not needed by my company, or it is not needed by my interviewers. Okay, so but it will always give you an edge over others. And is okay. So Riaz has asked about Amazon's version of Java. So everybody are working on their own versions of Java these days, because Java changed their licensing a bit. So if you want to use Java's or Oracle's version of Java, then you might have to follow certain things. But if you are following the Java language specification and creating your own version of Java, or if you are using the open source version of Java, then there are no restrictions. So before winding up, we will have a quiz, and that quiz will decide who will get a free membership to the offline app also. And even if you do not win the quiz, it is still fun to attend the quiz. So in this quiz, I'll ask a few things that are not covered in this course. So you can make your guesses, you can Google if you want. So these are some of the things that are relevant in today's software industry. Okay, many of the things you might not have even heard about it. So don't worry, just note down the terms you do not know, and you can later ask me whether you want to learn more about it, and I can suggest any of my free webinars on that topic, or I can suggest you to materials for learning those. Okay, so everybody go to your app, you can type heartin.live and see if you can see MSA 101 Qs. Okay, so MSA is modern software architecture. Okay, questions are not live yet. I will start once everybody confirm whether you can see the queues. This is a live queues, and your result, your names will come up on the screen in the leaderboard. Okay, questions are not live yet. Don't worry. I will make it live once all of you join. As for this week, we have a generic queues about the software architecture practices in general, but that will not be the case for further classes, because we will have quizzes based on the topics we cover in each of the classes from next week. Okay, so shall we start? So let me also share my screen so that you can see the live results. First question is, so do not worry if you do not understand a word out of these questions. So these are all modern software architecture things. So just answer something. So there are no negative markings, so answer something. So this is just to make sure you understand how to use this tool. Answer something, okay, which is not a way to achieve resiliency. So what do you mean by resiliency? If you do not know resiliency, just search Google. So most of you might have heard this thing called Netflix, right? So Netflix uses a tool called Chaos Monkey to actually simulate few things. So most of the first three are actually valid answers. So there is nothing called Chaos Monkey. So that is not the case. So here question is, which is not a way to achieve resiliency, right? So there is nothing called Chaos Monkey. So answer here is 4. Participation is more important. Okay, only 4 of you joined. Which company created Docker? So these are just questions, general knowledge questions in the software industry. That is good to know. So which is very trendy these days. So you can just answer and get familiar with the tool and try to come in that first 10 at least. Even otherwise it is perfectly fine. Just answer the quiz and see the results in the screen. You can answer the quiz from mobile or any device you want. Just go to heartin.live from any device. So usually most of the people who answer the quiz have told me that they prefer to see the webinar in a system, and they prefer to see use mobiles for their quizzes. Some people feel opening another tab is more comfortable for them. Who manages the Kubernetes project? So Kubernetes, so Docker is a container. So Docker, as we saw, Docker Inc. created Docker, and then since Docker became popular, they changed their name to Cloud Inc. created Docker, and then since Docker became popular, they changed their name to Docker Inc. So Kubernetes is a software that is used to manage many containers, and it is this project is managed by Cloud Native Computing Foundation. Originally, it was developed as an internal project in Google, and then later they made it open source. Since you eventually want to be a software engineer, or you are already a software engineer, so there is a thing called a 12-factor app. Again, you can explore. So 12-factor app are it is 12 factors that are good for modern applications. Okay, the scores, leaderboard and all change, right? So here the 15-factor app is something that came after 12-factor app, and then it describes about 15 factors, and admin process is something which is not part of the 15 factors. Okay, so we have 2 first places. So don't worry if you are not getting. So which all are 2 if I need to web scale of application. So web scale is a term that is used to refer to applications which has virtually no limits. Okay, it is only limited by the speed of internet and other connectivity mechanisms. Okay, and if I need to achieve web scale, I should keep my state only where I should keep my state only in a database, because I cannot create an application without any state. So state is the data that you store. So I have to keep my state in a database. Okay, so if you are in software industry, this is a very popular term that you will hear over and over again, even for interviews, microservices. So at the end of our Java learning sessions, so we will have a session on modern software architecture where I'll be mentioning all these things in detail, microservices and web scale and all the other things that you saw earlier. So we'll not be just learning Java. So after learning Java, I will help you become a better software engineer. Okay, and web scale again I mentioned. So this definition also I mentioned a couple of slides back. So you answer first, and I see even if you have joined now, and if you have not tried answering the quiz, you can still do it now and get the special gift. Okay, so which of these is not a source code management tool? Okay, if you so assuming you are a software engineer or want to become one, so source code management tool is a tool that can help you store your source code, because while learning Java we are going to create source code, so you have to keep it somewhere, right, and share it with others. So these are the tools that can help you out on that. So GitHub is popular source code management tool, GitLab is popular, Bitbucket is popular, so which is not popular or non-existent is there is nothing called Bitbucket. Okay, so even if you are making it wrong, at least you are seeing the answer and then you are learning something, right? So should all new projects be using microservice architecture style? Yes or no? This is a the remaining questions will be all controversial questions, or those which do not have a right answer. But from my perspective, so and most of the industry experts' perspective, so even though that is a trend, you shouldn't be using it always. Use it only when it is required. That is something which we will learn in our modern software architecture session after learning Java. Okay, wait for that session where we'll be learning lots and lots of things about software architecture in real world. Before that, we will finish learning Java. Should software architecture be separate from software development? Earlier, that was a trend. Software architecture is separate, software development is separate. So now they are mostly something that goes hand in hand. An architect can also code. There is nothing that restricts him from writing code. So all these are axioms that were once followed very rigorously and then changed based on market trends. Okay, can the architecture for a software project change frequently? Bit tricky. So earlier we used to say architecture should not change frequently, but the current trend is if it has to be changed. Okay, if it has to be changed, it has to change. You do not have to live with it, live with a mistake for the rest of your life. So if you are considering, so I mentioned architecture for a software project because initially most of the architecture principles came from civil architecture and civil engineering, and then it was used for software architectures as well. Some of the principles or axioms, but there, if you are building a house, you cannot change the structure because of some mistake, and so you have to live with it, or you have to do patchwork, you have to do something else. But software is something which it is not like a building you can change if it is needed. Okay, and are there any standard best practices that every architecture can follow all the time? Do you know about any standard best practices that every architecture can follow all the time? So you have still chance to attend the quiz and be a participant in this quiz program. So there are no standard practices because a good best practice for today might be a bad practice for tomorrow. So we already mentioned the object-oriented programming was the only best thing to do some time back. Before that, procedural programming. So C introduced procedural programming, and then that was the best thing then. And after C, we had C++, which introduced object-oriented programming. Java also followed object-oriented programming. Okay, so C, C++, and all. So C, when C came, procedural was good. When C++ came, object-oriented was good. And now, and Java initially followed object-oriented extensively. So now people are telling functional is also good. Okay, so things will change. always. So there is nothing that is same for always for all the time. So you have to and so this is an interesting question for those who are from testing background or those who are currently working. Has testing numbed us of our reasoning capabilities? Again, another controversial question or tricky question. So all these things were not straightforward questions, just to throw out some names and terms. Okay, so this is how you will get your final results. So even if you have not won, even if you have not got the prize, you still will should have got a response with some position you hold. You can message me that position through my Facebook page. You can go through heartin.me or LinkedIn, heartin.work, or you can just reply back to the mail. Okay, you can just reply back to the mail uh, to heartintech@gmail.com. Anyway, you can respond back with your position just to make sure you have attended this quiz. And Manoj is the winner, so Manoj will get a special prize anyway. So, and the second, third, and all the others will also get their special prizes. So Marin is for today. So Marin was also the winner for today's cloud session and cloud quiz today morning. Okay, so coming back to our questions. So you have any question? So if you do not have any questions, let me complete the remaining slides. So this is for those people who ask me whether I am not an engineer, so I can learn or not, or I am not a computer science engineer. So how many of you are from computer science here? So yeah, somebody mentioned a question: if is Java going to deprecate? No, only features are going to deprecate. Certain features in Java might get deprecated, but Java as a whole will continue, because we have more than, I think, 3 million devices that are using Java. So you might not be using core Java directly. You might be using a framework like a Spring or Hibernate, but to use those effectively, you have to learn core Java. And even if you want to clear any interview or exam, you have to still learn core Java. So this is my wife, and this is my look before lockdown. So so she was from a non-computer science engineering background, and she was into a support role initially, and then so after marriage, I found it very difficult to adjust with timings, because she will have shifts, I will not have shifts. So and then I taught her, and that is also one time I got a lot of extra time, and then I started writing or blogging in my blog javaj.com. So she is a full stack engineer now in a leading bank. What is your preferred way of learning? So is it video sessions or is it live? So if it is video sessions, you can just mention V. If it is live trainings, you can mention L. I'm not asking about in-person trainings, because of Corona, there may not be much in-house or in-person trainings for some more time. You can mention V for video and L for live. Okay, we have V, we have L, we have V and L. Yeah, most people have mentioned L. Okay, so now an interesting question. Okay, have you completed all the video courses you have bought? You can mention Y or N. Don't type everything. You can mention Y or N. So you might have bought a lot of video courses whenever you get offers. So have you completed all those video sessions? Yes or no? Okay, majority of you have mentioned N, because the reason I have found is many of you buy courses when they have an offer. Okay, but what happens is so since that course is there with you for a long time, you will think, okay, I will take it in some time, and then mostly that sometime never comes. So that is why whenever you join a university course, you have a schedule, you have to complete it within a time, you have to write an exam, so you will take it mostly serious. Okay, so that is an observation I have found. So we will, even if you pay and join the course, or even if you get membership to the app through by winning the quizzes, there will be still a deadline where you will have to complete. And for these live sessions will be always free, so don't worry about it. But if you want to see the recording, you'll have to go to the app. That is just to make sure you attend sessions, you value the time. And so in between, so general theory sessions, I will also share it in our group. If you are in Facebook, you can go to hearten.ai. So it will take you to the Facebook group where we are discussing these things. Okay, just type hearten.ai in browser, because all these are my forwarders. So most of the hearten things are my forwarders. Okay, and so most of the things are done. And then just a quick question. So if your job is in any way affected by COVID-19, you can message me, you can message the panelists, or you can message me in any of the ways you can. And we are always here to help you out with free personal mentoring. So these are some of the initiatives that we are doing. So we give personal mentoring. We provide them tools to conduct their own trainings. We will pay for that tools. You don't have to pay for that tool. We will provide you free training. So we will provide you personal mentoring. We will try to provide you part-time jobs in ways we can. And so I will also provide you an opportunity to work with me on my next book or my blog. Okay, you can go to hearten.me and then message me if somebody has mail, they are affected. So just message me in my Facebook page or LinkedIn, or by sending an email, and I will try to get back to you at the earliest. But if you are there in Facebook, message in Facebook page. For that, Facebook page is the only page which my some of my students and my wife Sneha and others have also access, so that you might get a faster response from there. The others, all other things like email and LinkedIn, I only personally check and respond back. Okay, so this is my new book that is coming, Serverless Programming on AWS by BPB Publications. If you have been in industry for some time, if you have learned C, then you know that Let Us See is a famous book. So, and it has sold over 1 million copies. And this is my first book with that publisher called BPB. And my previous books were with a publisher called Pact, which is a UK-based publisher. Okay, and so whoever is interested can work alongside me on this book. And so that is the surprise for the book. The surprise for the week: whoever stayed in this webinar until now can message me, and that you were part of it until the end, and then I will get back to you on how we can become part of it, and how you can contribute, and how you can get your name within my next book. And also I will apart from mentioning a thank you note in the book, I will also try to share a copy of my book. If you are local, I can give a signed copy, but if you are in other locations, I can still ship it. So this book or any of the books. Okay, so you can contact me and I will get back to you. So Q&A. Okay, so one question is advantage of Java or Python. So there is no, so these days for an architect, to be an architect, you cannot survive only with one language. Okay, so currently I am a Java expert, but I am still learning Python. Okay, so Python experts are learning Java on the other side. So you cannot simply learn one language and then do everything with it. So if you see an architect like that, then he has this problem called golden hammer problem. So where it says you have a hammer and then everything that comes your way will look like a nail. Okay, so there are advantages for Java, type safety, and frameworks, and a lot of things. And Python, if you are looking for a machine learning kind of project, you might have a lot of libraries. You'll have better REPL feature. So it is all based on use cases. You cannot live with only one language these days. But if you learn Java, it is very easy to learn most other languages. That is from my experience. Okay, keep in touch. So send me a request in LinkedIn if you are there in LinkedIn, so that you will be updated. So I'll accept your request. So you can check out my blogs, javag.com, cloudrix.com. So javag.com has not been updated for some time. So and then I am planning to resurrect, because once about 3-4 years back, I had 45. I have students from 45 countries active, and then it was very popular also. Then I spent time on cloud, especially because I was writing books on cloud. I wrote 2 international books on cloud. One of them had Java, but it was limited. So, but recently I for my one of my friend shared a certification dumps that they got from somewhere, and it was interesting to see that in the explanation page they had all mentioned my blog. So uh, I thought how much I neglected this blog, so I am going to put extra effort on now making it as popular as before by adding more relevant notes. And so this training will help me learn what are the real problems faced by people, and then I can help you. Okay, so that is my primary objective for the conducting this session. Yeah, so yeah, somebody mentioned Yashwant Kanekar, let us see and let us C++. Yeah, that was from this author. Okay, so we will meet next week same time. And then some people requested, can we have a evening 8 p.m session? I will try for that, but connect with me in some way, either LinkedIn or Facebook page or somewhere. Okay, homework. Okay, good. So Shruti has asked whether are there any homeworks. Okay, homework is so today try to install, because we will try to do these things. Try to install Java. Okay, and try to do Java minus C and Java C minus V, so that your environment is perfect, and you can execute Java. If you have any doubt, you can message in the Facebook group. You can go to heartin.ai, and then okay, again another question, IntelliJ or Eclipse. So I was using Eclipse exclusively initially. Before that, I used to use NetBeans, but currently I use IntelliJ, either the paid one or the community edition. I find it better than other IDEs. So you can use the community edition for now, or you can also get 1 month free trial of IntelliJ. So within that 1 month, we will cover most of the Java. So try to install the IntelliJ free for 1 month installation, and within that 1 month, I will try to get you a extended license from IntelliJ itself. So for whoever is attending this training, I had a personal license. So I mentioned about talking in Oracle, right? So that event was sponsored by IntelliJ. So for that purpose, I had got a IntelliJ complete ultimate license from them. So yeah, that is it about IDs. I prefer IntelliJ, but this nothing is stopping you from using any other IDs. Okay, yeah. So there was a question like, it would be better if you guide the beginners with installing and prerequisites. Okay, so definitely I'll be doing one more session just for installing and doing all the prerequisites. Okay, if you are, I'll be sharing the details through heartin.ai page. So the Facebook group. And if you are not part of that Facebook group, or if you are not part of Facebook at all, just message me in any way. I will respond back to you with details of that session. So that is only for today morning. We had a session only for installing, creating account and setting up a AWS cloud. So similarly, we will have a session for Java also before our next theory session. And if you want that help, if you find any issues, just message me in that group, and I will help you out. If you are not part of that group, message me anywhere, and then I'll help you out. Okay, so Gayatri has asked, what is the screenshot that we should send? So it is, if you participated in the queues, you will, in the end, you will see some position. Okay, so that so you are in some positions, a screenshot of that if possible. If that is not possible, it is still fine. You can message that you participated in the queues, and if you did not participate for whatever reasons and still attended the training or this live session until the end, you can message me that also, either email or Facebook page or LinkedIn. Then assuming there are no more questions, I'm going to have my breakfast come lunch, which is my brunch for today. And hope you all will have a nice day. And also, if you find anybody who is in real need because of COVID-19, who has lost job or finding it difficult to continue, so just let us know. We will try to help in any way we can. So just a reminder, if you have any suggestion related to topics, just submit that form and I will get back to you, or I will add those topics to my list. Okay. Any suggestions for topics, any suggestions for how I should conduct this class, anything, you can just message there. Okay, so bye bye and see you soon.